Okay, so thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the organizers for inviting me. This is my first, but definitely not the last time to be in Latvia and Riga. So it has been really nice tour already. What I have had, because of my background is in the photonics, and there was already organized very nice meetings. And yesterday, of course, the event started well. So nice to see you here, and also all of you who are online. So please prepare to take your mobile phone when we have the workshop part. So we are using so-called Mentimeter. So it's very simple thing, and you can give your comments, votes, and so on. But we will get instructions once we get there. Then also, if you have any questions, you can just raise your hand here and ask. You will get a microphone first, and then you can ask questions. So you can interrupt me anytime. I'm fine with that. And those who are online, you can follow. You can use the chat window. So please add any questions to the chat. I will get the questions then and answer them. So that's basically how we are going to do today. So about the topic, so it's about the startup mindset and the tool for commercializing innovations. And I would like to really, I hope that what you get from this presentation is that it's really it's really a different kind of set of idea how your brain should work. Of course, you can be a scientist at the same time, but when you start working for a startup, so you should switch your brains, at least for that moment, you think about commercializing something. So I want to emphasize that topic, and then also to bring up some things why it's so different, and what are important things to do or not. And really, like we have heard yesterday already, innovations are important for changing and improving our world, and really to commercialize them, otherwise they just stay. So let's get started. So a little bit about myself. So who am I? So actually, I started my first company in '93 actually, but then I still stayed at the university. But then at '98, almost kind of by coincidence, when nobody else was ready to start a company, I gave up my scientific career and then became the first employee of my company. And typically you think that, okay, if you go to the startup, it takes only maybe a couple of years and then you have to find something else. So actually it took 15 years of my life. Because the company, fortunately, was successful, so kind of, I was involved as an entrepreneur because I was the first employee, so I made the coffee, I took the accounting, I cleaned the offices and so on, like you know who are already working in the startup. But then, of course, the company grew, and I was able to see the challenges as a small and medium-sized enterprise, and finally also as a large-scale corporation, LSC. And then I also lived 7 years in US, in Silicon Valley, seeing that kind of culture before moving back. Then 2013 I moved back, so I have been a professor in the photonics applications and commercialization, but I have still remained active, so I have co-founded a couple of newer companies, and being the board member, advisory board member, and very active also lecturing and so on. Some of the highlights is that the first company, like I mentioned, it became almost unicorn. So there's a small part of second horn, so that it didn't pass the $1 billion milestone. So it was $920 million when we sold the company to the Austrian company AMS, which is nowadays called as AMS Osram. Then I'm also the co-founder and board member of a company, Dispelix. So after this, of course, I worked full-time for Heptagon, but then after this, I haven't been anymore working full-time because of my professorship. But Dispelix was selected 50 most promising startups in the world in 2015 out of 50,000. A company still alive. We have about 120 employees and living very exciting moments because the company is working in the augmented reality area. And we already heard yesterday about some startups which are also working in the same region here. Then Spectral Imaging was a startup spin-off from the VTT. We made a very successful exit to a German company, and also a Primoceller, where I was in the advisory board. We also made a very nice exit to the German company Schott. And then also I have been involved with some SMEs, small and medium-priced enterprises. For example, the companies Fastroy, which was the leading company international for healthcare software. So my task was to help the company to become international, and finally we were able to enter to the UK market, and then the company also made an exit to a German company. So that's about a little bit about my background. So mostly what I'm telling you here is based on my kind of experience. So what is innovation? So one thing is that too often we kind of say that it's an idea or invention. So innovation is something that we patent and so on. But that's not true. So the innovation is really something that has to create value. And even the highest, let's say, bar is that the customers will pay. So they spend money. And like you can think about yourself, you don't throw money just like that. You are very careful where you spend your money. And the same thing applies to any innovation. People are very careful where and when to spend money. One thing is also important is that it has to be replicable at economical cost. So in the startup, many times you are making the first prototype, and you can do that. But when the customers asks that, okay, can you supply me next month 1,000, 100, 10,000, whatever is the product, it's a different thing. You may not have thought about that, how you make the repeated manufacturing. So that's why it's something important to keep in mind. And of course it has to satisfy a specific need. So really it's different than scientific result, because scientific result is only the most important findings in the scientific study. Usually you just then publish them, and after that nobody barely remembers that, unless there's another scientific group will use the results for their other findings. So unless we commercialize these scientific results, they will stay there, they won't change the world. And then of course the invention, that we too many times kind of, let's say, mix the words innovation and invention. So innovation is a unique or novel device, method, composition or process which you can patent. But again, innovation doesn't have to be invention. It can be any idea, something that you cannot even patent. So please keep that in your mind. So what's the problem then? So we have a lot of, let's say, scientific research, and why don't just start making them as a product and then selling them, and the rest would be kind of, let's say, nice thing. So why we talk about why we have this kind of events and so on. Professor Christensen from Harvard Business School, he studied in 1 year that there was over 30,000 new products introduced every year in the market. And out of those, 95% fail. So that means that even, and in most cases I assure you that people who have started introducing the product into the market, they have done a lot of work to develop the product, develop the service, develop the manufacturing chain, logistics, marketing, and everything else. So they have really spent a lot of time and money for this. So it's not about that the 95% of the ideas fail. It's really about the products which are actually in the market already. Another thing what we many times talk about, the first mover advantage. So that the person or the company which brings the product first in the market will get the market, especially when we are talking about products which create new markets. Here also the failure rate is 47%, meaning that in quite many cases you make mistakes when you commercialize something as the first one. You underestimate the consumers, what they wish, you make mistakes. So the second one, which comes to the market with almost the same product, they can already learn what the first mover, what kind of mistakes they made. So it's not always obvious that it's good to be the first one. And we see a lot of companies in the market already. Those who are the pioneers, who want to bring innovative products into the market, and those who always follow. So this is not simple. The other thing also about the startup life expectancy. So this is the result from one of the big American Silicon Valley VC. So they typically get 4,000 proposals every year. Okay, they are the big one and then the very famous one, but 4,000 proposals. What this tells you? This tells you that first, pitching is important so that you can present your business idea in a couple of minutes. A good slideshow is important, which is only in the, let's say, in the 10 slides you can tell your core thing and so on. So really, they don't have a lot of time to spend on thinking whether your idea is good or bad. Okay, out of those 4,000 proposals, they study 200. So that's still quite a lot of amount. Somehow they finance 30. 6 of them will become somehow profitable, so not making loss. And only 1 or 2 of them make all the money. And this is really a kind of sad truth. So again, it's not that simple to commercialize innovations or to stay alive as a startup. So what is then startup mindset? What does it mean? One thing is, it's now very important. I was in Berkeley in a kind of startup boot camp, and there the professor started the 1-week boot camp asking first that, okay, how many of you are going to start a company? And I thought I was in the kind of follower, I was in the audience following the boot camp. I thought that that's a silly question. Why to ask students who came from all over the world for 1 week to a startup boot camp, why to ask from them that how many of you are going to start a company? Of course, everybody raises their hand. But it didn't happen. Only half of the people raised their hand. And then the professor said that, yeah, okay, this is exactly what I expected. Because already, at least in the US, existing companies have understood that the startup mindset is important. Because otherwise, even the existing companies cannot innovate. And I will tell you more about why this is true. And I would have a lot of examples also how existing companies keep failing and why the startups have the possibility to build and grow as the leading companies in the world. So startup mindset is important, not only that you start a company, but also if you want to work with any existing company, small or medium-sized enterprise or large corporation, and be there in the R&D team or product development team to innovate things. So really, if we look about the definition, so I won't even like to use the word company when we are talking about the startups. I would, of course, legally they are companies, but I would really like to kind of, let's say, think that they are different, completely different. So it's a startup and then a company. Of course, when you start growing from the startup, it's not just, let's say, a binary thing that one morning you are a startup, next morning you are a company. Of course, that's the very challenging task also. But anyway, startups are supposed to search business for a business model. They try to find so-called product market fit. They try to find repeatable sales model. Their environment is completely chaotic. There are multiple unknowns. There's a lot of risks and the mistakes that you have to do. And that's the definition, and that's the true if you are working in a startup. So what is then company? Company executes business model. So for every year, there's a very clear plan what a company is supposed to do. There are very clear financial targets for the company. How much profit, even quarterly, the company is supposed to make. How many people you are going to recruit. So profitability is everything. Avoiding risks and mistakes is everything. Because otherwise the owners don't like that. So if you look about these two definitions, they are almost like a different, completely opposite. So in startups, you are supposed to take risks. You will make mistakes. And company, you are supposed to avoid avoid risks and mistakes. And that's why also for existing companies, it's so difficult to innovate. Especially when we are talking about so-called disruptive innovations, which change the world. So some other good definitions for the startup is from Harvard University. It's an organization that pursues opportunities without regard to the resources they currently control. So they try to do things and they are not even sure whether they can do that. But they still have to have their vision about doing big things, even they don't have any financial resources at that moment, not even the team members, people, and so on. Another definition, a startup is a company working to solve a problem, where a solution is not obvious and success is not guaranteed. So the failure is something that they face all the time. And the last definition, startup is a company designed to grow fast. Being newly founded does not, it's not a company, nor it's necessary for a startup to work the technology, take advantage, and so on. So the growth, when we are talking about the startup life, means about the revenue and customers. We don't look that much about the profitability. And that's why also the funding tools for startups is highly important, because we want to catch the market and then see whether we can get all the customers. So then about the person. So what is the things that you need from the person to be a startup employee? So they are of course called entrepreneurs, and usually entrepreneur is defined as an individual who organizes and operates a business or businesses, of course taking the final risk. This is of course for any entrepreneur, any person working as starting a company, whether that's a grocery store, kiosk, or whatever. But also entrepreneurs are commonly seen as an innovator, a generator of new ideas and business processes. But then if you think about that the other kind, let's say, characters that you should have, I like this. This is from Steve Blank, which is a very famous American kind of serial entrepreneur and lecturer in many universities, leading universities. So he kind of, let's say, looks that there are composers and then there are performers. And I like this definition. So the founders fit the definition of an artist. So when you're an artist, you see things, something gets in your mind, and then you want to create that. And usually it's something that nobody else sees. And then the most important thing is that whatever you have in your mind, you have to be able to bring that as a tangible product or service. Another thing is that in order to help them to move their vision to reality, they have to surround them with world-class performers. So even you are the best composer in the world, nobody enjoys your music unless there are the best world-class performers who will play your song. And that's also in the startup case. It doesn't matter, it's not that one man can do or one woman can do that alone. You really have to surround yourself and build the team. And then, of course, the founders and the entrepreneurial employees, so those are the ones that don't start a company, but they want to join those kind of companies. They really prefer operating in a chaotic environment. It's fun for them, actually. And typically in the chaotic environment, there are multiple unknowns. And what is true is also that these types of people are rare. Steve Blank says that they are also unique and even crazy. So not everybody is supposed to be an artist. Not everybody is supposed to be the composer. And that's why you should also understand that what is my role? So if you want to innovate and commercialize new things, it may be that it's better for you to work in the existing big company, or you want to join startups, or then you are the one who starts the startups. But you don't have to expect that this role fits for you always. So then a couple of, let's say, things that are, I would say, highly important. Highly important, let's say, to understand that this belongs to the startup life, to the startup mindset. And one thing is about failures. Because like I said, that the existing companies, they try to avoid making mistakes. So one thing is that, okay, business life is full of failures, mistakes, wrong decisions. And when you think about a startup, that's everyday life. And it belongs there. You shouldn't try to avoid making mistakes or making wrong decisions. Because even in a startup, you have to be able to make decisions, even you don't know the answer. But you have to keep the company moving forward. But it's completely fine that let's say, following morning, you come back and tell your employees that, okay, my idea yesterday was wrong. I got one of my team members called me yesterday evening, we discussed, and I agree that, let's say, we should change this plan now. So it's completely fine. That's part of the startup culture. I have also said that the longest living company is not the one that makes always the best decisions. So it means that you are not supposed to think that now you have to make a good decision or best decision always, because otherwise the company stops, and that's not good. So I would say that the longest living company is the one that is able to stay away from critical mistakes. So there are some critical things that can kill the whole company. But don't expect that you can build a good company or keep a company alive only if you just have to make best decisions every time. Make decisions, but understand that you may make wrong decisions and you change your mind. So in a startup, because it's about the searching and learning, so you really need failures to learn. Because that's the best way to understand not what you should do, but also what you shouldn't do. And that's really true. So at least in Finland, I don't know what is in Latvia, but if you have a bankruptcy in your CV, it looks bad. You may not anymore get a loan for your house or whatever from the bank and so on. And people think about that, okay, you are a second-class person and whatever. And that's at least in Finland. But in Silicon Valley, it's a positive thing. You have done bankruptcy, you know what are those critical mistakes which can kill your company. So that kind of person is valuable. And I usually say that if you have 2 bankruptcies, you are even more valuable person. 3, that's great. Okay, 4th maybe start looking bad already. But anyway, in startup culture, bankruptcy is not a mistake, or that's not your problem. People, that's a valuable thing that you have seen also, that what you shouldn't do, besides what you should do. So another thing what Steve Blank and his colleague have said, that failure is an integral part of search for a business model. You cannot search and find something that you don't even know what is the answer if you try to avoid making failures. Okay, and if you start afraid to fail in a startup, you are destined to do that. Because then you are afraid to make decisions, and finally you will make that kind of decision which will kill you. There's actually a nice word called pivot, because failure still looks bad. So the startup community have decided that there's a word pivot, which means that you can, let's say, accept that you have made a mistake and then you change your plan. So pivoting is that word for that. It looks very nice. And really you should again understand that pivoting is not a failure. So if you say and tell your team that, okay, the original plan was bad, we have to change the plan, it doesn't mean that you failed. You just found one way which didn't work. So learning that is a hypothesis or guess, so mainly it's guess, I would say, even in a startup, it's wrong. It's not a crisis. So some other comments. So Winston Churchill said that success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. And also he said that success is not final, failure is not fatal. And Thomas Edison, when he was inventing the light bulb, said that I haven't failed, I just found 10,000 ways that won't work, when he tried to find the right type of filament for the. So enthusiasm is also needed. Let's say after failure, you still are excited to move forward. Some people, you also say that, okay, it's a luck. So perfectly, it's only about the luck whether your startup is successful or not. But I would say that there's no luck. So you can always work to make your own luck with smart planning and effort. And that's also when yesterday there was also a discussion about the teams and how important, at least in US, is that the VCs invest on teams. And one thing what I have been said, and I think that's true, is that even if you have the best ever business plan for a startup and a product, if you have a bad team, they will fail. They will make mistakes, and the product will never be commercialized. There will never be a successful startup. But even if you don't have a good plan, but you have a great team, the great team can understand that this current plan is bad and they can change it. So that's why the team is so important, not the plan or the business idea itself. So very important thing in the startup is then, I would say, fail fast. So of course you shouldn't give up after the first challenge you have or the first problem you have in the manufacturing or setting up the parameters right and so on. But still you shouldn't continue over and over again if you start seeing that the idea was not good. Because if you fail fast, if you make the pivoting quickly, you still have time and money to try something else before your money runs out and the VCs won't let you continue and you won't get extra funding anymore. So that's why, let's say, failing fast is important, because then you still can try something else. I have seen so many companies to die because they didn't give up and they kept trying and trying and trying, because they thought that, okay, our original idea was so great. One thing is also important is there is a question about when to meet the first potential customer. And I would say that as soon as possible, because nowadays you have to get the customers involved in your ideas. So today there's this kind of lean product movement where they have defined the word minimum viable product, MVP, and that contains no additional features that is not needed for early adopters. So something which is as simple as possible, but you can already, there are so-called early adopters, the first customers typically interested to test your idea. So you should start testing your product idea already with this MVP. Because they are, let's say, if you are a startup, and because in most cases you try to solve a problem, existing problem, which a large company, for example, has. So of course, if you ask that, okay, what does it mean? What do you really? They will help you because it's their interest that your product or service will be successful. So they will help you. Of course, at some point, when you are talking about money or whatever, then let's say they start playing games and so on. But in the very beginning, be open and talk to the customers already. Another thing, because I heard that there are also, let's say, teams which are developing your business plans by end of June. This is maybe you don't see this as a good comment, but Steve Blank has said, and I completely confirm this, that no business plan survives first contact with the customers. So even you have an idea about, let's say, what would be the product or the service, who would be the customers, and what kind of setup you should have, pricing and so on. It's so often that when you then go to talk to the first customer, after you come out from the meeting and you have to just rewriting your business plan. That's true, but that's part of the game, because in the startup you are searching for a business plan. So don't think that your first business plan is successful. In my company, Heptagon, actually I calculated that the first business plan that was really kind of made the company profitable was the 7th. So we had 6, and then these are not just small changes in the business plan. These were almost kind of different business plan, so that we focus on completely different kind of products to the different industry. So we failed 6 times before the 7th. We were lucky that we had VCs who were, let's say, who still kept on financing us and believing on us. So we had a good team. So pivoting really is important. And again, we think that even the existing companies, they had their business idea and it was very straightforward for them to get started. But here are, for example, examples that the Airbnb, we all know what they are doing. So they actually started with the housing solutions for conferences, so kind of air mattresses. So very cheap way to find some kind of location where to sleep. And it's completely different, not completely, but it's a little bit different than today. Twitter started as a podcasting platform and sharing audio content. And they are not famous for that anymore. So they have pivoted. Starbucks, first they sold espresso makers and coffee beans. They didn't set up any restaurants or cafeterias. Netflix, they had this mail order DVD service, and then they started streaming only films. YouTube started as a video dating service, tune in, hook up. Volt, where you can order foods and so on, they started ordering and paying food or drinks in advance for takeaways. So, and I can keep on, I have actually 5-6 slides like this. So almost every successful company has not been able to commercialize and become successful based on the first idea they had. It have been the second, third, or like in my case, seventh, which was finally successful. So you should understand that, and the only way to keep on changing your plans is that you talk to the customers, because they are the ones that will actually pay your business. So you have to listen carefully what they tell. What is the problem with your current idea and so on. So like I said, that innovation means creating value so that the customers in the ultimate place pay. So basically, then in many times I think myself, even I was in the business to business kind of industry, there are humans who are making the decisions. And that's why I many times thought about myself that would I be ready to spend money on this idea and so on. Or asking my friends or colleagues or family members on that. Because again, in most cases, it's still humans who will make the decisions on purchasing things, even in a big company. So then the question is that why are you ready to spend money on something? Because I will be sure that everybody of you will be careful where to spend money. If you are not careful, then I can collect your notes or coins, whatever. Just leave them on the table. So basically there are only two things. Either you need that. So if you are in the food industry, clothing industry, you need that. In the housing industry, we need a shelter where we live. And there you can have a business. And the other one is that you can, let's say, want that. There are many things that we don't need for living, but we think that we need. We want that. And that's why also, let's say, the marketing is so important and good tool in this want area, because they can make your that it's so strong want that you actually feel that you need it. You cannot live without that. So these are the only two reasons. There are no other reasons why you would spend money. So that's why this product market fit is the one that you search in the startup or when you commercialize any new innovations. What is the product, why and how it should be structured, and then what the market says. Yes?
Hello.
Yes.
I have a question. Is there a big difference if I want to commercialize like a usual business to selling something or like that, or if my business idea is a scientific, something complicated?
Okay. Let's say, yeah, it is more difficult to create new markets. So when that's something so if you enter to the existing market and that's something what you try to sell is something people know and understand what is it. In a way, I would say that it's easier, but of course then the competition is more difficult. If you try to to sell something which is not known already, that may take much more time. And we have seen that it easily takes, I have actually about a couple of examples about that the so-called the window was not right, the time window. So I would say that yes, it's easier to sell something which is already known, but it's harder to try to make a successful business out of that because the competition is harder. So then what is the path for commercialization? So basically there are two ways to do that. Either it's called technology push or market or demand pull. So the technology push is something that the universities do a lot because they get some crazy idea in their lab and then they start building a product or service out of that and they hope that everybody loves that idea. And then you try to find, let's say, the market which would benefit. The other one is that you listen first what the industry says. And then you hear about some demand. Or people complain that this service is not doesn't work well. Or it could be better. So you already know what is the need in the market. And then you go back to the lab and you start developing something. There's no right or wrong way to do. So, for example, Steve Jobs from Apple said that I never ask customers what they want because by the time you get it built and you have spent maybe tens of millions of dollars, they want something new. But it's always more difficult to work on the technology push because there you don't know where is the need and why the customers would pay for that. So Henry Ford said that if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Nobody had an idea that you could actually make cars so economic that even the middle class would have money to buy those. So Henry Ford said that you should ask right questions, listen carefully to the answers, make data-informed decisions, and act with the future in mind. So that's why, again, in most cases, the most disruptive innovations come from the technology push, because otherwise our life would look like this. So Henry Ford would still make these fancy carriages for horses, and we would use the most fanciest technology to make a smoke signals. So in that sense, we as a scientists are responsible to make these kind of disruptive innovations which will change the world. And also when I asked in some companies as a university scientist that, okay, tell me what I should do, they said that we don't know what you should do because we don't know what is going on, what kind of new things you can find in the lab and so on. So do whatever you feel important. And that's why also the basic, the fundamental research is important. But then they said that, but please then come to tell us what you have found. Because it may be something that, let's say, solves our problem. And it's very valuable for us. Again, the challenge is to forecast the product market fit. So when the electric light bulb was invented, for example, there was Henry Morton, he was a president of the Stevens Institute of Technology, highly appreciated institute at that time. He said that everybody acquainted with the subject will recognize as a suspicious failure. So only the inventors, Thomas Edison saw the idea as a founder and an inventor. And even the best specialists in the market didn't understand that will be a great innovation. About sound film, one of the Warner Brothers co-founder said that who the hell wants to hear actors talk? And about the iPhones, when iPhone came first with the virtual keyboard, Borges, which is still a technology journalist, said that the virtual keyboard will be about as useful as tapping out emails and text messages as a rotary phone. So that's, you have to also understand that as a startup company or the entrepreneur, many people will keep on saying that that's stupid what you are doing. And I even used that as testing my ideas, because I went to talk, because if most of the people said that, yeah, okay, that's a great, I stopped doing that because it was too obvious idea for the market. So I was kind of 100% sure that there are somebody who is already developing the same idea. But the harder for people to understand what I try to explain, and of course I had to believe myself on that product idea. The more, let's say, opposite or people were opposing that and saying that that's stupid, the more excited I became. Because in most cases, the best business ideas get a lot of, let's say, negative feedback, and people don't believe on that. What about then? Perfect product market fit. So all the people have problems on using mobile phones, and then the companies decided to make very simple mobile phones for them, so that they can not small buttons or keyboard or touchscreen. So was this successful product? No. The problem was that no other elderly people wanted to say that I'm that old that I cannot use normal phone. So nobody wanted to buy these kind of phones and show that I'm old. I'm not capable to use any more normal phones. So that's also that even you think that you have a perfect product market fit, it may be that the reaction from the customers is something. Another thing what is also interesting, especially for the research, is that even a failure in your research may be a fantastic business. So it means that I keep saying that if you just find something new, a new phenomenon that hasn't existed, there is always a business opportunity, but you have to find that, and that's not easy. You know this. So you wrap material and whatever for shipment for this. The original idea for these two guys who developed this was to make the best wallpaper. Plastic wallpaper, because you know that if you put a wallpaper, it's very difficult to remove it. You have to scrape that, or you have to use different kind of chemicals and so on. So they wanted to make a very nice wallpaper that you can easily change whenever you want. Okay, certainly that was not the product which came out. They got another idea that actually you can wrap things, and it's a multi-million or billion business still for those two guys. This pillar went to the tests already for men. It was supposed to be good for your blood pressure, angina pectoris, and so on. And as you may have heard about that, the customers, the test people said that, okay, they don't help my blood pressure, but they found another phenomenon, and then this became a successful product for older men. Post-it note. I heard this story from 3M, which commercialized this. So the idea for this R&D scientist was to make the best ever glue that is also durable. Obviously he failed. It was not that good glue. And the story tells that he had this glue and he threw that to the fridge with this kind of metal door. And then he removed it, and then he noticed that, wait a minute, I can remove it, put it back, remove back, and there's no residue, not even an oily thing or whatever. And he said that, okay, that's something new. I have never seen this kind of glue. And then he insisted that I need to find an application for this. It took a long time. He even get very nasty names inside 3M because he didn't give up. But then finally they got the idea to add that to the paper notes, and the rest is, now it's one of the most successful product families in 3M. Gore-Tex was supposed to be also a very good material, very durable cloth, and then when he was stretching the material, by accident he noticed that, wait a minute, I get these small holes, they don't get water in, they get moisture out, so that's something new which had never been there. Coca-Cola was supposed to be a good medicine in the first. Okay, we were living in that time when every exotic drink was supposed to be, but that was supposed to be a medicine. So in many cases, even a failure can, so that's why I would say that this kind of mindset, of innovation mindset, is important in the lab. So whenever you find something interesting, you should think about that. Could this be a solution for somewhere? By the right moment of time, that telephone was actually invented in Finland, and it was the first phone with a camera system. And that was challenging because that time with a copper, it was very challenging to transfer a lot of data, even a live picture. But they succeeded to do that. But only a couple of years later, the company went into bankrupt because nobody wanted to see anybody on telephone that time. Now we have FaceTime and everything else. So now the consumers are ready and even want that. But it was just too early. The other one is from Apple, product called Newton. Touchscreen, you can handwrite text. It automatically converts that to the text and so on, but it was completely failure. The software for transforming handwriting was not properly working then. The touchscreens were not that good yet. And the people, it was just too new idea to have a touchscreen without buttons and so on. So there's a right moment also for applications. Another thing also in a startup, unfortunately this is the title is in Finnish, but it was interesting study made in the Finnish technical or financial magazine. So they listed 10 most valuable companies in the world. And then they asked lawyers to say that which one of these companies are making legal business in Finland. Because there is legal business, illegal business, and then kind of gray zone that they are doing something so new that there's no laws even for that. For example, for using insects for eating and so on. And the lawyer said that actually only 2 of them, their business is legal. So that's also one thing, that in a startup your challenges may be that actually when you come up with the ideas, there's not even possible to start making the business. So you have to start talking with the lawyers, politicians and so on very early, that they keep on changing the ideas. Another thing what I would like to point out is that the crisis is always a new opportunity. So I hate it that in Finland, so in the past 2-3 years, most of the newspaper articles have been that how this business is going badly. Whether that's restaurant, whether that's hotels, airlines or whatever. So we always saw problems that the COVID. But actually, COVID also opened a lot of new opportunities. And this was from the Finnish newspaper, that which businesses actually started doing very well. Face masks, hand sanitizers, disinfection equipment, renting, selling cottages, bicycles, packages, upgrading decoration home, web cameras, services for setting up online stores, postal services for packages, food deliveries. So whatever crisis that is, I would say that the most entrepreneurial people should all immediately start thinking about that. What does it mean? This doesn't go away in a week, so how I can benefit from there. So then about the building value. Important thing is also that too many times we just think that the product or the service is the only thing that matters. But if you are aware of, for example, about this business model canvas, here are let's say, blocks which are all important. I would say almost equally important to make successful business. And the value proposition, which is only one part of there. So the service, the product is there. It's only one of them. So the customer segments, customer relationship, channels, how to make the revenue, what are the key activities, key resources, key partners, cost structure, they are equally important. So you may even have the same product in a value proposition and you make the invention somewhere else. So you have a different way so that's what happens with the online stores. You are selling the same things, nothing fancy, but you set up the channel between the customers and the companies in a different way. So you can make also successful companies just by changing something else than the value proposition. One thing is, what is Starbucks product? You might think about that, okay, it's coffee, of course. But that's not, because if that would be the coffee, there are so many other cafeterias which would compete. So the leading thing for Starbucks after they sold the espresso machines and beans alone, they got the idea that the value proposition is the atmosphere. And that's the leading thing. And then they repeat that. So you have to have a Wi-Fi so that people spend time up there. There has to be cozy chairs, sofas. Then, of course, they have to sell good, high-quality coffee there, and so on. But the value proposition is not coffee. It's really about the environment, the cafeteria. And that's the leading thing, and that's why they became so successful. Another thing, Kone, they are the second largest manufacturer of elevators. So what they're actually selling? So actually half of the sales from Kone is coming from maintenance. Because again, if we think about that, what is the value? What I would like to buy if I need to buy an elevator? I'm not interested to buy an elevator. I want to buy a method to get from the ground floor to the other top floors. And if I don't have an elevator which works, or it stops working, I don't get the maintenance in a few minutes or hours. That's useless. I'm not interested about that. So that's why Kone has set up the very good maintenance network globally, where they can fix the elevators almost immediately if there are problems. And that's why they are so successful. And they make money also for that. Rolls-Royce, all making motors for airlines. Question was that, okay, what do they sell? The one analyst said that they are selling hot air out back from the engine. So actually they don't sell the motors. They sell the time that the motors are on. And they only charge the hours that the motors are used. What does it mean? Of course, again, the airline company is not interested to have a motor in the airplane. They want to have a motor that works and takes the passengers up and down from one place to another. And that's why, again, Rolls-Royce has the best maintenance network in the world. And if the motor doesn't work, Rolls-Royce doesn't get paid. So they are on the same side as the customers. Nice things also about this making the money elsewhere than with the product is, of course, the shaving, so you get them from the blades. And a very good example is also the printers. So the printers don't cost a lot of money. It's about the inks that you use. Okay, still you have to have a good product too. Again, what is the Uber's value proposition? It's not about having a taxi service. So they understood that it should be the smartest way to get around. People are interested to get from one place to another. How you can do that in a different way than the taxi companies. Low cost. How you can cut the cost. You don't invest in the cars, but use existing cars, which are there anyway. Then smart way, convenient way to pay, and for that, okay, mobile phones, smartphones can do that. So they because that's what the people, the customers actually want. I want to get from one place to another in a very convenient way. And of course not spending too much money. And that's the value proposition. So let's have a workshop next. So can we get the...
Maybe there is some questions in the audience here, and I will bring the first one. And you really show that there is you need to be lean, you need to be failing to continuously to learn about this and about the Canva model. It's a very great example how to use it. And maybe you can tell about as well how to approach the right persons in the business companies to talk. Is it not too early to show this Canva model? When is the proper time to show it? How to approach the companies? How to talk with the industry?
Yeah, I'm still in favor that you should start it as soon as possible. So you don't have to show the canvas, but you should go and talk to the customers and say that, what do you think? What do you think if I would have this kind of idea or product? Would you be interested to learn more, hear more? So I would really... So we too many times we think that we are in a different side. So we are doing something, we want to get money, and the customers are trying to not to pay too much and so on. But really in the innovation, in the startups, you are in the same side for a long time, and then their interest is also to help you. So I would say as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's great. And actually, the scientific ideas, they are afraid to show their ideas to pitch, and sometimes they don't show the Canva model. What you propose to show it, or maybe avoid it, as you told, only to say part of that, maybe a value proposition only.
Yes, I would say that maybe the canvas itself tells too much about your plans and ideas and so on. But you could make a couple of slides. What I always did in my company, I always had some samples in my pocket. Nowadays, I carry some slides, videos in my mobile phone about all the companies I'm involved. So I can just take and start telling telling something. Okay. Yes, and then of course you should be careful. So with the companies, of course, if you have a very good idea and you go too early, so yeah, okay, you should patent things before. So otherwise, let's say, they may steal your idea. So you have to be careful. And if the company start asking too detailed questions, stop asking. You don't have to answer every single technical question they ask. So please understand that also in the worst case, they steal your idea.
Thank you very much. And we have a couple of questions in the audience, so please.
Now I'm starting with the questions. Hi, Andre. First of all, the canvas is a very nice topic. Also seeing the presentation. I mean, Osterwalder was creating it for consumer products more or less. And what is the next level? So let's say consumer and digital is easy to solve, easy to replace. What is the next level to challenge and to get a real disruption now in the next 10 years based on digitalization?
Wow, I don't know the answer for that, and if I would know the answer, I won't tell you that. So okay, in the digitalization, of course, the quantum computing, the cloud services, and interaction between the human and computer with this AR, VR. So many things are happening. Artificial intelligence, data handling, data collection, and so on. So there's a huge things what are happening there.
Okay. As he said, several questions. What is the role of the human, so of the expert and the scientist in this
So, so, so we are the ones that invent these things. So there's no company invents. It's the humans who are doing that. And we always need the humans to do the things. So the computers are stupid. I keep saying that the robots are blind without cameras and so on. So there's still so we just do different kind of things, but it's still us. So I don't believe that the computers would or the robots would take the world and we would become meaningless.
Okay, we can bring one more question from the audience. The last one, yes, and then we go to workshop.
Hello, my name is Dainis. I would like a little bit deeper explanation about the critical mistakes that startups could have. About the critical mistakes. You mentioned earlier that there were need to avoid specific critical mistakes for startups.
Yep.
Okay, can you please give us a deeper insight of that?
Yeah, so I keep one thing what I keep telling always that when I have my lectures and courses on entrepreneurship, I tell them that whatever I tell you here, don't do exactly what I'm telling you, because every single startup case is different. But at least so and that's what I see that let's say that's the kind of role for mentors. They don't know what you are supposed to do. I had 2 mentors and I only followed maybe half what they said, and then I kept my mind in all the others. But the critical things are something that, for example, that you don't patent your idea well enough, or you end up to the patenting instead of keeping that trade secret. So those kind of fundamental things, because you know that at some point you are there, or you make the first contract with the first customer with the exclusivity, and you don't get out from there. So these are kind of the critical mistakes that you may make. You are too excited that okay, now I'm getting these huge companies interested, because or you start being too open with the customer. You are telling everything what they asked, all the technical questions, and suddenly they walk away, and you found out that they have actually patented your ideas. So those are, for example, examples of critical mistakes that will eventually kill your own business opportunity. Yep. Okay. So then please go to the www.menti.com, and then it asks the code, and you can then give the number 26758235, and then you should be able to see this question, the first practicing and testing question.
For the audience in the online, the code and the link for the Menti is below the presentation in the comments or posts.
Okay, good. So when you are ready, you can actually give an answer for this first question. And we are supposed to see this live, the answers. Wow. It's very unanimous at the moment. Okay, different. Out of the box thinking also. Okay, we can move forward also. So if you need more practicing, then you can just try this one, and then we can okay. Out of the box thinking again. Okay. Yeah, please come back 20 minutes from now, then you can hear the last words. Oh. Okay, still the number 2 is winning than the last one. Okay. Anyway, so let's take them seriously. So, who wants to start a startup, found a startup, join an existing startup, work in a larger company, study more before start working, or not do any work, enjoy life without working at all, or who says that no comments? Wow. Okay, so quite many interested to found a startup, even after all my negative and warnings and everything. So that's good. I should have asked this also before and then after my talk, that how many lost the excitement for starting a company. Yeah, but that's good also that you can see that they also want to join existing startups. That's very interesting career, but also work in the larger corporation, and there really this startup mindset is also very valuable today, because the companies understand that making the innovation is not that easy in the existing company with their culture to be profitable, avoiding mistakes and so on. Okay, so then you can write yourself comments about that if you don't want to become an entrepreneur and a founder of the startup, what stops you? Why you are afraid of that? Why you are not excited, interested? Yep, good comments. Yeah, risks is definitely something that, like I said, that's part of the startup life. And this failure and mistakes is very deep in the culture in many countries. And that's not that easy to let's say. Yeah, good thing. Need a team. So really, you need to find that business idea. Not sure. Nobody, of course, sure yet, because you have to start testing. That's the whole point. Yeah, availability of investment funds. That's, of course, the tough thing to find the money. But of course, in some cases, you can start with some angel investor money. Also, if you have friends or family members who can invest maybe a couple of tens of thousands in total, you can get started with that. But yes, it's very difficult to do that. Yeah, the idea won't be needed. Okay, potential partner with similar mindset. Yeah, but that's why these kind of events are very important. So really, the networking is all about that. You can start building a team, and also this kind of, let's say, culture that you give before getting is also very great. So in the Silicon Valley, I really enjoyed about that culture. That whenever you went to talk to anybody in the startup community, the first thing is that they always try to help you. They didn't ask any money or anything like that. So in most cases, after you presented your idea to somebody, they said that, I know somebody who could help you here. And in that way, you were able to get always some new connections and so on. Yeah, no experience. But that's also what happens typically, that let's say you don't have an experience when you start a company, especially when you are young. Another thing is, of course, if you can bring another more senior person there as an advisor, mentor, whatever, that of course helps. Okay, so let's move forward. About risk management. So do you love risks? Can you manage with risks? Or do you prefer normal life? Or risks makes you even sweating? Or risk make you even vomiting? Because that's also something, I would say that when you start building a team for a startup, the first thing is that you have to make a self-analysis. Think about that, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses? Be very, very, let's say, frank on that. So don't try to think that, okay, I'm good in talking if you are not really the best one to talk. If you know, for example, in my case, I made my PhD in designing optical components. But I decided when I started my company that I never become CTO, Chief Technical Officer for my company, because I knew even better guys for designing optics, and I hired them. So really, let's say the success is that you make the self-analysis where you are very frank about what are my strengths and weaknesses, and then you start filling those weaknesses. So yeah, so many can manage with risks. This is the minimum, I would say, if you think about the career in startup culture. Yeah, loving the risks even better. Good. Then about a chaotic environment, because that was the other one that I emphasized, that the startup culture is really a chaotic environment. So either you love it, you can work in a very chaotic environment, or you prefer well-organized environment. You get lost in chaotic environment, or you do everything to avoid chaos. Because that really happens that in a way it's chaotic, that let's say even if you make the plan, the pivoting is so important, and in the smaller case also that you have to make changes for your plans. And again, it's not about making wrong mistakes, it's just understanding that you have a better solution. So, and the kind of balance is important. So when you build a company, you should also start moving the company from the startup culture to the normal company. And that's also very challenging, so that you don't have these, let's say, propeller heads with the ideas of keep changing all the time. You should start bringing, let's say, normal stability into the company. Good. So most of us, we of course prefer the well-organized environment, but yes, we also have here audience which either can work or even love chaotic environment. So if you think about anything about either your studies or ideas for startup and whatever, so what kind of help you would need most urgently? So what would be the first thing which comes to your mind? Whether you think about your current work, your plans as a startup, or your studies. Because that would be also helpful for all these organizers, because they are the ones that you should be able to help you and set up whatever kind of events or whatever kind of things that really make sense. So investors, business partners, expert view, team members who do the tasks that I'm not loving to do, money, feedback from the stakeholders, including users and customers in content lead, team view. Yeah, very, very good ones. I would say that at some point, even what I can, let's say, constantly had lack was time. So even there's a quite good amount of money available if you have a good idea and a good team and a pretty good business idea. But the problem at some point is time. You don't have that time to test and try everything what you have in your mind. And in the worst case, even you have to keep on, let's say, prioritizing things so that you always prioritize and do things which are important or highly important. Business mentor and a lawyer, they're definitely these organizations. You have the startup society and also the organizers can help there. Yeah, intro to the friendly VC who answer emails. Yeah, they are. But you said that 4,000 proposals per year. That's tough. So sometimes you need to have somebody who introduces, because they can read emails from persons they already know. Money, business angel, yes. But then if you think about, especially those who are building or innovating something, that what you would think that are the main challenges and tasks if you look about today and before you can call yourself as a profitable business and a true company. So which might be the main challenges and tasks? Of course, there's plenty of them, and there's no right or wrong answer on this.
Creating a company. What about the business partners? How to select the people in your company, and when you are running your company, when you see that some partner is not interested to continue work and not working, but still exist in the company, how to run the company with the business partners? How select the business partners? How to run if you see that some partners are not interested, they are going to some other company and so on. How to deal with this company?
That's a very good point. And I would say that, let's say, that you, in the same way as you start selecting your employees, team members, you just have to let's say, test their interest and excitement about the idea. And then definitely if you see that they are not that interested and things start going badly, you should change them. Because let's say in the startup where let's say you should have the common goal and so on, everybody should be very excited to work to the same direction. So these let's say, partners which are not fully they're in the same boat, they are actually even negative for the whole thing. But yeah, I would say that, let's say, one thing, I would say that, of course, let's say the business model canvas is let's say, a good tool, because that you can use also for presenting your business idea. But yeah, you just have to, let's say, tell your view about what is the goal, and then listen them, and if they share your thoughts and so on. But if they don't share your thoughts, then change them as soon as possible. And very important thing is really also that you shouldn't do things all yourself. So it's really about thinking that where you can find a business partner to do things, because outsourcing is very, very important again. Yeah, there's a lot of good tax relief, time, resources, revenue. Yeah, that value of death. Unfortunately, I don't have time to explain that, but the value of death is also very important in the growth phase of any startup. Right idea. Yep. Steady buyers, legally protected product, well-organized production, and so on. Competition. Yep. Competition is positive. There are also negative things. Actually, you need some kind of competition, especially when you are creating a new market. Yeah, competitors and others are fast in growing and so on. So the speed is important. Good. Okay, but then think about that you already have a profitable business, but then you are aiming to the unicorn. Unicorn means the business or company with a valuation of $1 billion. So what's the big difference on that? So running a small or medium-sized enterprise or running a unicorn. Yep. That's a good point. Yeah, you need time. So if the platform business dies soon, you don't have time to build a unicorn. Scaling, yes, that's really a challenge. So like I said that in my company, I was the first employee. When I left, we had 1,000 employees. And there are many challenging phases, especially for growing an organization, all these kind of, let's say, communication within the organization and so on. I always remember the time when I didn't anymore know the name of all the employees and so on. So there are plenty of challenges when you scale up the team. Good marketing all over the world. You need a big market, customer education, business scaling, yes, that's of course. Tax policies, yeah, team members again, partners, yeah, very important. You cannot do everything alone, not even as a unicorn. Yeah, missing indicators to benchmark progress instead of the results. Because when you are building a unicorn, it's not only about the profitability, it's really about the big market that you have to be able to capture. Control and all the processes and options for further development. Great. So that was actually the last question. So thanks a lot. We will keep also those and we will still have a couple of slides to conclude. Sorry. Okay. So the first. Just a last slides about the commercialization process. So the commercialization process, when you commercialize an innovation, it's very well-defined process. So of course, in the best case, it should follow this kind of roadmap. So you define the need, you define the technology, you define the product, you define the market potential. Again, things that you may forget completely. So even before starting to develop product, you should define the market potential. Define the market details, where, whom, when, manufacturability, already that. And then you should come up with a justification for the business. And after that, you should always understand that you need money. Because for developing something before they are in the customer's hands, you have to spend always a lot of money. Then only after that you can start, it makes sense to start the product development. And then the pilot manufacturing, initial sales as soon as possible to talk to the customers, listening the customer feedback, and also do the manufacturing engineering. The manufacturing engineering is something that you keep on, so there's a manufacturing taking care of the manufacturing, but you have the engineering to think about that, how can I make this cheaper, with the low-cost materials, more efficiently, better yield, and so on. So you should have immediately a team different dedicated team to start thinking about the manufacturing engineering. Because when the competition comes, you have to be able to cut the price to keep your market share and so on. And who should be involved? Especially, okay, in the startup, of course, everybody's involved, but this is important for the existing companies. So actually, basically, everybody should be involved. So general management to give the permission and the funding, the marketing team to know what are they supposed to start marketing, R&D, of course, manufacturing, so that they know that what kind of resources are needed, how much personnel are needed, do we need to find what kind of subcontractors and so on, the manufacturing engineering, because there always is some new ideas, new things to be manufactured. The financials have to keep on track of the money, and then of course the sales should know as soon as possible what they are supposed to start selling after half a year, 1 year, when the product or market is ready. So that's all what I had in my mind to tell about you about the startup mindset, and especially the value of innovations and the whole commercialization process. I hope that all those teams which are developing their first plans and so on will be as excited to continue the work. Even I told you some about the challenges and so on, but I would say that it's really exciting. It's really exciting to be part of something that you are developing, something new. I would never change any of my days what I have been spending time. Of course, I was very naive, blue eyes. When I started, I never thought about that, how much challenges there really are. But I like that, and I have been very excited to participate in even now in several startups. These are my contact information. I'm very happy to help anytime you have any questions or whatever. So my email is open, my telephone I can answer and so on. So thanks a lot.